That song makes me want to dance. When I was growing up in the Baptist church, I used to get in trouble for dancing. Sitting in the choir dancing. We're talking about how able are you today? We've been looking at metaphysics for the past few weeks. We took a little break for Yogananda last week, but we've been looking at metaphysics based on Reverend Eric Butterworth's new book called Practical Metaphysics. What metaphysics calls us to is to look at life, to live life, to experience life from a higher dimension. And we talk about that dimension here at Unity of Wilmington as the frequency of love. So we're being called to live love in all aspects of our life. I've taken a lot of metaphysics classes. I like them. I'm thinking you guys like metaphysics because here you are in a church that studies metaphysics. So I'm thinking you like it. Reverend Paul Hasselbeck was one of my first metaphysics teachers, and I enjoyed him so much that when I go around and teach at other churches and he's there, I will make time if I can to sit in his classes to see what he's discovering and to learn. Well, Eric Butterworth has been much like this for me. I've been enjoying reading this book and learning new things and having new ahas and insights. And part of teaching a class is I get to learn things when I'm teaching it. And it's fun to do so in the company of others. So I'm excited to be in your company today learning some new things. Eric Butterworth says this: practical metaphysics means the practice of metaphysics, practicing it in every moment of our lives. We do that whether we're aware of it consciously or not. We're practicing metaphysics because what we focus on expands. What we think about, we bring about. Yeah, our thoughts are created. We're creating our universe through our thoughts and through our feelings. And so we're practicing metaphysics all the time. When we're interacting with each other and we're having a great time, we're in that flow of life, which is a practice of metaphysics. So we get to do it all the time. The beautiful thing is that as we do it, we can create lives that we want to have, that we look forward to being in and living in every single day. We all have a worldview. Most of that worldview comes from when we entered the party at life. We were born into a family that was ongoing already, had its own beliefs. So we picked up the party hat that was available to us. We picked up the beliefs that were happening in the family. We picked up beliefs from pop culture, from radio, from TV, from books. We picked up beliefs from our friends. We picked up beliefs from education and how we were taught. When I was growing up, one of my closest friends was African American. I was in Jonesboro, Arkansas. And when I was in the 3rd grade, and I had just moved there, and she was one of the first people to befriend me. Her mother would not let me come to her house because I was white and she was African American. I felt sad about that. My dad and my mom were okay with it. So that was one of my first experiences of difference and somebody not allowing for difference based on an immutable characteristic. And I've had a few of those in my life. I've been one of those at times in my life. But it's fascinating to me to see how we pick up a belief and then we carry it on. And I do the same thing. Have you ever had the experience of talking to somebody and they say something and you're like, wow, I never thought about it that way. Those are aha moments for us. I love those aha moments in life. So we're trained into a belief system or a worldview. Now that's not to shame or to blame where we came from. It's actually calling us, and metaphysics is calling us to examine that, to explore it. Does this belief still work for me? Is this part of the current version of me? If it's true, and it is part of the current version, I'm going to keep it and I'm going to want to do more. And if it's not, I'm going to let it go. Sometimes we do that in friendships. Sometimes we do that in location. When I lived in New York City, I used to ask myself every year, do I want to continue to live here? And as long as the answer was yes, I continued to live it there. And the year that the answer was no, I went somewhere else. So it was fun to just be where I wanted to be. I've told you guys before, my definition of wealth is having what I want and wanting what I have. That includes location. That's part of metaphysics. I want to live the fullest and best life I can live. I want to be where I want to be, and I don't want to be where I don't want to be. And so when we allow ourselves into that, we're living metaphysics. Most of us have a lot of thought patterns. And one pretty consistent thought pattern that many of us have is, I'm not lovable. We have our own version of it. Oh, I'm not good enough is a form of I'm not lovable. Oh, there must be something wrong with me. I'm fundamentally flawed. Whether that's a conscious thought or an unconscious thought that we live out of, that's a form of I'm not lovable. It's a thought pattern that we picked up somewhere. And if we walk around in the world very long, there's going to be somebody to tell us, well, why did you do it that way? What were you thinking? Have you ever heard those words? Unity metaphysics teacher of old, long ago, his name is Frank Judici. He says all problems, challenges, or whatever we may choose to call them, stem from this one basic problem, the inability to love ourselves totally and unconditionally. The inability to love ourselves totally and unconditionally. Now you might ask, well, why does that create a problem? Well, the moment we are seeing ourselves as less than total love, we have stepped out of alignment with divine mind. Because God is love, we are created in the image and likeness of God, therefore we are love. We have freedom and free will to choose to be less than love. God will still love us. God will still be love. We will still ultimately at our center and at our core be love, but we have a right to step outside of love. How do you know when you stepped outside of love? You're judging somebody. I should say I'm judging somebody. That's a very quick way for me to know. I'm judging somebody. I'm criticizing myself or someone else. I'm not feeling happy or feeling good. I'm not feeling in the flow and having fun. Great indicators that somewhere I stepped out of alignment of love. Whether it's toward myself or another person, I have stepped out. So when we're not in that alignment with love, what usually comes up is insecurity and fear. And when fear comes up, then we give our power away. If I'm not loving myself, I'm going to be asking you to love me. Because if you love me, then maybe I can love myself. Have you ever played that game? Does it work for you? It didn't work well for me either. What happens is I've given you my power. So I'm walking around the world basically saying to other people, will you love me? And they may say yes, and they may say no. And if they say yes, then I'm going to be going, oh my gosh, if I do this, will she love me? If I do this, will he love me? What if I do this? And then I'm going to play the game, what will it take to get you to leave me? So I'm going to play that game, and I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to get you to leave me. And then I'm going to say, I knew it. I knew I was unlovable. Have you guys been there? Yeah. Many of us have, and some of us haven't. But what happens is the moment we step outside of that knowing that we are unconditional love and giving that knowing to ourselves, then we're in a need for approval for somebody. Somebody's either going to approve of us, or we're going to be doing things to keep to try to keep them from disapproving of us. We have about 60,000 thoughts a day. 60,000, that's a lot of thoughts. But most of them run in a particular pattern. And if you want to see your pattern, then one of the things you can do is do stream of consciousness writing. Pull out a piece of paper, take a pen or a pencil, and start to write. And just keep writing until you have your first repetitive thought. A lot of times it's about 15 minutes for people to come to that first repetitive thought. So out of 60,000 thoughts, we've been trained or conditioned to think many of the same thoughts over and over and over and over and over in a day. Well, that'd be great if we were doing affirmations. If I'm thinking, I am lovable, I am successful, I am abundant, then that's fine. But if I'm thinking, oh, I wonder if something's wrong with me, I wonder if you're going to like me, I wonder if I did that right. If that's my repetitive thought, I'm going to have a different experience. The beautiful thing about metaphysics is we get to choose our experience, and we can come home to the choice of loving ourselves and make it a choice. It might not be easy all the time. There have been many times when it's been a challenge for me to love myself because of something I think I've done that I shouldn't have done, or something I think I should have done that I didn't do. And so that thought process is going to start moving around in my mind, and I'm going to be challenged to love myself. And as soon as I'm challenged to love myself, I'm going to project it all over you. I'm going to think, oh, wow, so-and-so doesn't love me anymore. Oh, I must have done something. Or maybe I didn't do something. Oh, no, what am I going to do to get them to love me again? So we then put all our energy in that place. The Course in Miracles says that we're either in love or we're in fear. And the moment we are in fear, we're seeking approval for somebody else other than ourselves and the truth of ourselves, which is that we are divine beings, that we are a beloved expression of God, a beloved expression of the divine. And then here's what happens. We put our attention and our energy on things we cannot control, because as soon as I'm scared, I'm going to try to control, usually not me. I'm going to try to control somebody else, somebody's actions, somebody's words, the very way they're playing. When I was a kid, there were several times my mother said, "You're too loud." I was having fun, but to her, my play was too loud. I'm going to try to control other people's behavior, their ideas, their feelings, or their mistakes. Have you ever had somebody try to talk you out of what you were feeling in the moment? Did it work? Have you ever tried to control somebody else's behavior and get them to do exactly what you wanted them to do when they did not want to do that? Raising a child, that's a great way to have that all show up. Oh, I want you to do this. No, I'm not going to do that, especially in the 2-year-old phase. So we often spend most of our energy in the I can't control, in the area of things we cannot control. So then we're wasting our energy. When we bring that energy back to things I can control, what is that? I can control my words. I can make a conscious choice about what I'm going to say. I can control my behavior. I can choose not to say what might be going on in my head. And then I can choose to be loving instead of turn and walk away. Or in certain instances, I can choose to turn and walk away. I get to have the choice, and that's a freedom. And when I exercise that about me and not try to exercise it about other people, I free up my energy to have a whole lot more fun and a much more creative time. When I was studying to be a licensed Unity teacher, there was a woman who was also studying to be a licensed Unity teacher. We took many of the same classes together. There were about 11 of us actually who were on the same trajectory. So we were taking a lot of classes together. And her thing was, she thought that people should only eat healthy snacks. And so I was living in Hawaii, going to classes in Hawaii. So in Hawaii, you always bring food. It's just part of the culture. And we always had a table set up for the food that we knew would come. It might be candy, it might be cookies, it might be sandwiches, it might be sushi. It could be anything. And so she went on a rampage trying to tell people you could only bring healthy foods. We have to have vegetable trays, we have to have this, and we have to have that. How do you think that worked? It didn't go too well. Because people want to bring what they want to bring. I always take things I want to eat when I go places. And so she worked hard to get other people to do what she wanted them to do, and she was frustrated, and she would let us know regularly that she was frustrated that we weren't doing what she wanted us to do. She could have chosen not to eat the candy. She could have chosen not to have a cookie. Instead, she wanted us to be different, so she wasn't tempted by it. There was another year that I was living in Hawaii, and I was teaching classes as a licensed Unity teacher by this time. And I had read the book Sugar Blues, and I had chosen to spend a year without sugar. It's a little challenging to do. So I'm teaching this class. It's in February, which might give you a hint of what's coming. I'm teaching classes, and so here people are bringing chocolate. Oh, have this chocolate heart. Have this piece of chocolate. Oh, I got this chocolate. So one night I'm teaching. It's very close to Valentine's Day. And somebody comes into the room, and they have the biggest box, heart-shaped, of Russell Stover candy I'd ever seen. So it was a small room, bunch of people in the room. We were excited. The room is getting warmer. I had my back to that chocolate, but I could smell that chocolate. I could hear it say, "Hey, Nickie, come get me." It was one of the hardest things to do, was not have that chocolate, because it felt like that chocolate was all around me. I could have been mad at her for bringing the chocolate, but she had already told me why she brought the chocolate. I brought it here so I don't eat the whole box. Very smart on her part, but it was my business. It was up to me not to have the chocolate. It was my choice. I had to exercise control, and I had to actually stand in my own power. Now, I could have considered myself to be a victim to that chocolate or to her behavior, or I could come into co-creation and remind myself the reason I was not eating sugar. I could remind myself that my choice was to eat as healthily as I could and to exercise. I could remind myself of all kinds of things. And each choice could have been what I did, but the one that held me in my power, the one that was, to me, the practice of principle of living in metaphysics, was to make a clear and conscious choice. I could go over to that box of chocolate. I could talk to it if I wanted to. I could eat it if I chose to. But over and over, I kept coming home to me. What do I want? What will work best for me? And let everybody else sort themselves out. And then the chocolate could be there, and it was perfect. So we all have this opportunity, and it looks like this. We can be a victim, which would be to be at the effect of another person in all kinds of ways, or we can choose to be the co-creator. When I'm in co-creation, I'm taking responsibility for what's happening. Not the blame kind of responsibility, but I'm saying, wow, I have an ability to respond. I have an opportunity to eat the chocolate or not eat the chocolate. I have an opportunity to think the critical thought or notice I'm thinking it and move to appreciation. I have an opportunity to notice if I'm having a judgment about myself or somebody else. And I can say to myself, when did I do that? And as soon as I can pinpoint that time that I did something similar or that very thing, I can be more loving to myself and to the other person. Carl Jung says that anything that's unowned inside of us is going to show up as an event outside of us. It's an opportunity to heal that event. When I'm a victim, I'm going to be living in fear. And when I'm living in fear, I'm going to wonder if I'm doing it right. I'm going to wonder if I'm lovable. I'm going to have my actions motivated by trying to get somebody else to tell me that I'm okay. When I'm living in love, I'm living from that knowing that I am a divine expression of God, a beloved expression of God. And when I'm living from love, I get to stand in my own choices. I might worry about whether you like me or not, but I can always come home to the knowing that I'm lovable whether you like me or not. I can always come home to the knowing that I make a difference in the world simply by being an expression of love in the world. That I don't need to change anybody. I don't need to fix anybody. I don't really need to do many other things. But by being love in the world, I will make a difference because love radiates out. Think about it as a ripple effect. It radiates out. When I'm in fear, I'm probably going to react and try to control things. When I'm reacting, I'm probably going to say something that I'm sorry that I said. So then I'm going to either have to decide, am I going to let it go, pretend I didn't say that, Hope you're not mad. If you are mad, give you enough space so you can get over being mad. Maybe you'll practice forgiveness for me, and then I'm going to come back and interact with you and see how things are going. The other thing I'm going to do is if I've said something I shouldn't have said, I'm going to wonder if you're thinking about that every time I'm around you. Oh, are you thinking about that time when I said such and such? So I'm going to then start withdrawing. I'm going to project on you, and then I'm going to decide it's all your fault that I withdrew. Is this familiar at all? We do this. It's part of our humanness. But when we can embrace it, learn to laugh at our humanness and bring in metaphysics, bring in that higher perspective of love, we can do something different, which is we can respond and be open to the possibilities. When I'm in my response mode, I can come and say, oh my gosh, I said something to you and I've been worrying about it for days. So I came to tell you I'm so sorry I said that. It was thoughtless of me. And you know what often happens? That other person says, I don't remember that. But I have been cogitating, I have been agitating, I have been ruminating about it for days. And I have decided that you don't like me anymore because I said something. Or I can come and say, this is what I said and I remember it. And wow, I'm glad you don't remember it, but I remember it. I've been thinking about it for days. It's been driving me nuts. So I wanted to clear it up so that there's no negative energy, there's no blocks between us. When we are co-creators, we have the freedom to choose. We have the freedom to choose to be loving. We have the freedom to choose to say, oh, I'm in judgment. Oops, let me do something different to change the judgment. And usually if I'm judging something about myself or another person, there's a feeling under there, usually fear, that I haven't addressed yet. And when I address that feeling, usually the judgment disappears. When I'm in co-creation, I can live fully and express fully the love that I am. Because when we're talking about the frequency of love, it doesn't matter if you give it back to me. If we're talking about the emotion of love, yeah, I said I love you. How come you haven't said it back to me? I want you to say I love you back to me. Somebody does something and we say, I think you owe me an apology. When we're not in the frequency of love. But when I'm in the frequency of love, it doesn't matter what comes back to me. I can just be love. And I'm going to get the benefit of being love, and you are going to get the benefit of being love, because when we send out love, it goes exactly where it needs to go. When we send out love, it will touch you. Whether you're conscious of it or not, it will touch the people it needs to touch. And transformation happens. We cannot be in the presence of love without transformation happening. And the call of metaphysics, the call of how able are you? How able are you to live in your divine identity? Hopefully every day more able. And each time you come here, you'll learn something new that will assist you in that journey, in that progress. And when you honor the fact that you're on your own unique path, at your own unique pacing, then you're on your journey. I'm on your journey. Everyone in this room is on your journey. And we're allowing each other to be in our right and perfect place right now at the right time. Now, the Bible teaches us some beautiful words about love that I want to share with you today. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but it rejoices in the truth. Love rejoices in the truth of who you are, a beloved expression of the divinity that you are, a part of the allness that created the universe, the co-creator that you are. Love celebrates that. And we can celebrate that as love with each other in every moment, no matter what the appearance is. If you're open to that, if you're available, if you're interested, if this would delight you, I'm going to invite you to say these affirmations with me together, because each of these affirmations is a truth of who we are. Shall we say these together? I am love. I am able to love. I live my life as an expression of love. Are you willing to live your life as an expression of love? My guess is simply the fact that you are here today, that the answer is yes. So just like the song Overwhelming says, yes you are, and we truly can live in a holy, holy way. We're going to sing our way into meditation in just a moment, and then Dr. Noel is going to come up and she's going to lead us in that meditation.